I'm Adrian and welcome to the latest episode of Fighting Skills. In this series, we take an in-depth look at a character's fighting style, not in terms of how many they know, but how effectively they handle themselves in a fight. In other words, how complete of a fighter the character in question is. In this episode, we will be analyzing Captain America from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This video assumes that you've seen every film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Captain America has been in, as well as his corresponding fighting styles video. If you haven't seen his fighting styles video, it's in the description below and on the fighting styles playlist. If you haven't seen his movies, you absolutely need to, as they are some of the best the Marvel Universe has to offer. I will keep spoilers from the movies to a minimum and won't dwell too much on the specifics surrounding each fight we take a look at unless it's absolutely necessary. So take this as your spoiler warning. In order to keep things as objective as possible, in this series each fighter will receive a fighting skills rating which is comprised of several categories that all have a weighted value. Those categories are Martial Arts Prowess, which accounts for 28% of the overall score, Situational Awareness, which accounts for 12% of the overall score, Technique, Strength, and Speed, which comprises 15% of the overall score, Defense, which accounts for 15% of the score, Use of Superpowers, which accounts for 10% of the score, Conditioning and Stamina is worth 10%, and Intelligence, which is worth 10%. For an in-depth explanation for each of these categories, as well as a couple disclaimers, please refer to the Batman Fighting Skills video available in the description below. Captain America was literally designed to be a perfect soldier. Steve Rogers was already a noble, honorable, honest, and dedicated individual, so once they combined his innate qualities with the super soldier serum, it was a match made in heaven. The man became an unstoppable force of nature and an extremely formidable fighter, and that's what we're going to be taking an in-depth look into. Captain America turns to a variety of different martial arts depending on the situation at hand. Whether it's a disarm, a throw, a counter, or just a simple attack, he knows exactly what to use and how to use it effectively. Captain America is very much a kicker in his style, and that's kind of a no-brainer when he has enhanced superhuman strength. Your legs are much more heavily built and longer than your arms, and can therefore strike a lot stronger than you ever could with your fist. In Captain America's case, he uses several advanced kicking techniques, including the split kick, the spin hook kick, the jump spin back kick, and the kick that has come to define him as a fighter, the So you've seen that very same push kick montage in several episodes of Fighting Styles, but why exactly does Captain America use this kick so often, and what makes it so effective? The mechanics of the technique are simple. All you need to do is lift your leg and push forward with either a pushing motion or more of a blunt snapping motion. The kick has several advantages compared to other kicks as well. You don't need to raise your leg too high, which means it's harder to read. It's also incredibly strong, acting as a natural battering ram in which you can put the entire weight of your body behind the kick. It's insanely good at creating distance as well. Now, given all those benefits, add in Cap's augmented strength, and it's obvious why he relies on it so much. He's also fantastic at executing great throws. This throw right here is known as a belly-to-back suplex, an absolute favorite in the world of pro wrestling. However, it actually makes an appearance in judo, where it's known as an ura nage. Normally it looks like this, but when you're countering someone who's trying to throw you, it looks extremely similar to the suplex. He also uses a popular judo throw known as ippon seo nage. In this technique, you trap the bicep in between the elbow and forearm and shoulder. You then drop your body and throw him over you. The man is even capable of outboxing an enemy with supercharged fists. As a matter of fact, perhaps the best demonstration of Cap's unending knowledge of martial arts techniques is his infiltration scene in the beginning of Winter Soldier, where he swiftly takes out enemies using kicks, disarms, counters, throws his shield, and anything else he can think of. So taking all of this into account, it's a no-brainer to give Captain America the full 28 out of 28 points in martial arts prowess. He not only has a knowledge and training to execute the techniques perfectly, he knows exactly when to do them to yield the most effective outcome. Superpowers, strength and speed, along with conditioning and stamina are all categories that go hand in hand with Captain America, as those are essentially his superpowers. The man chases after a car, barefoot, and doesn't break a sweat, demonstrating not only insane speed, but his out-of-this-world conditioning. Your muscle fibers are divided into two very general categories: fast twitch and slow twitch. The slow twitch muscles are used for activities like long distance running, while the fast twitch muscles are used for intense sprints where speed, rather than longevity, is preferred. It's the reason why long distance runners can suddenly sprint during the last 50 or so meters of a race. They're using completely different muscle fibers in their bodies. However, what makes Captain America such a beast is that he can instantly switch from fast to slow twitch, like us, but he rarely, if ever, tires. Normally you build up lactic acid, and that's where the pain comes from that prevents you from running any further after you've sprinted for a bit. But not Cap. He's an unstoppable locomotive when he gets going. And not only that, it doesn't matter how many martial arts techniques he executes, he never gasses out. This is readily demonstrated when he's storming one of the helicarriers in Winter Soldier. After a brief jog, he effortlessly dispatches dozens of soldiers. Not only does he have the physiological advantage here because of the serum, he also has his own strength of will, probably best encapsulated with his famous quote, "I can do this all day," which he says to Iron Man right after he used AI to read Cap's moves. No matter how difficult things may seem, he always keeps fighting and usually finds a way to win. What's pretty cool about Cap is that he's turned his iconic shield into a mortal weapon of its own. Although he did initially rely on guns on his first film, by his second solo film, Cap pretty much ditched guns altogether and turned into a completely melee-based fighter. His projectile weapon was his shield, using its abnormal properties to turn it into a deadly boomerang of sorts. Not only does that require great strength, but insane coordination as well, essentially treating the world like a giant pool table, where his shield can bounce around the edges to end up right back with him. Although techniques like the push kick readily demonstrate his awesome strength, small moments like this do as well. Iron Man was flying right past him, and he's able to stop him mid-flight with only one arm and hardly any effort at all. He also goes toe-to-toe with the sentient super robot Ultron, and doesn't get demolished in the process. One can really go all day discussing how his superpowers, strength, and speed, along with his conditioning, all interact in perfect harmony. It's why he's able to throw guys out of planes, why he can coordinate his attacks with Iron Man, why he's able to take down a jet by himself, why he can bicep curl a helicopter, and why he can even use a motorcycle as a weapon. Captain America can literally get grazed by a bullet and stabbed and still win the fight. So given that, how does Captain America score in these categories? In use of superpowers, he receives a full 10 out of 10 points. The super soldier serum basically made Steve Rogers superhuman in almost every sense, and he never hesitates to take full advantage of that. In technique, strength, and speed, Captain America receives a full 15 out of 15 points. Each one of his techniques is executed quickly and with a ton of strength behind it, and he's able to continuously demonstrate just how fast he is in general and how strong he is. In conditioning and stamina, Captain America also receives a full 10 out of 10 points. He never tires due to a lack of conditioning or stamina during fights or missions, and the only time he showed he was getting a little tired was when Iron Man read his moves using AI. And even then, Cap still won the fight. Let's move on to situational awareness and defense. Both these categories are deeply related, but a good way to think of them is the following. If you get hit and the guy's right in front of you, it's because he exhibited poor defense. If you get hit because the guy was around you, but you didn't see him, that was because he had poor situational awareness. So let's discuss situational awareness first. Cap demonstrates exceptional abilities in this department. For example, during this encounter, Cap is aware of the guy in his left before he has a chance to shoot him. In this instance, he uses the environment successfully in this fight by using the nearby box to hit Red Skull. During his fight with the Jatari aliens, despite being in an extremely cramped space, he's able to address and deal with each and every one of his attackers. Here he even dodges laser fire and uses a nearby table to take them down. In another fight, he uses a table as an impromptu shield. During the Winter Soldier, the amazing elevator fight is fantastic at demonstrating his situational awareness as he has to defend himself from various incoming attacks from all sides. However, despite the fact that his situational awareness is extremely above average, it still isn't quite perfect, as there are a couple of instances where hits creep in because he wasn't fully aware. In this instance, the alien got him in a chokehold because Cap wasn't fully aware of his surroundings. Here he gets hit by a laser, and perhaps most distressingly, he was almost shot by a man during his infiltration of a ship. Luckily, he had backup at just the right time, but that could have been the end of Cap. Moving on to Cap's defensive abilities, he's pretty much unstoppable. He can counter throw whenever he's been dealt a punch, he can block hits, he can disarm weapons, he can counter a hit, he can use his shield to block gunfire. I mean, in essence, his main weapon is a symbol of good defense, a shield. Despite being superhuman, Captain America is still very much human and can make mistakes. During the elevator fight, he gets hit, but he is handcuffed, so that can slide. However, later on he gets shocked because he didn't see that hit incoming. His defensive abilities also go down a notch when he's fighting people like Loki, who routinely hits him with a staff. He also gets punched by the Red Skull, and a few punches slip in courtesy of the Winter Soldier, as well as a shock or two by Ultron. He's also countered by Iron Man in Civil War, but I won't be counting that against him as Iron Man was using his AI to read and counter his fight pattern. Lastly, although he does get in some great hits against Thanos in Endgame, Thanos does inflict quite a bit of damage on him. In other words, Cap's defense does slip occasionally, but this is usually due to extreme circumstances like being handcuffed to a wall, fighting a god, a sentient robot, a cosmic madman like Thanos, or being countered by AI technology. Furthermore, at the end of the day, none of these hits are absolutely lethal, and to only rarely get hit by supervillains is a true accomplishment. So how does Captain America fare in these categories? In situational awareness, Cap receives 10 out of 12 points. He's a master of using the environment to his advantage, and he rarely lets enemies get the drop on him. In defense, Cap scores 12 out of 15 points. He is readily able to annihilate any and all grunts, but does face some difficulty in keeping his defense up when he's going against tougher enemies, such as Winter Soldier, Ultron, or Thanos. Moving on to Captain America's intelligence, much like Batman, he's a master tactician and is often relied on in order to come up with a great battle plan, no matter who the enemy is. He consistently makes sound decisions in the midst of a fight and usually wins, no matter if it's against a superpowered foe, a common thug, or even a Quinjet. However, much like Daredevil, his emotional intelligence can sometimes go against him. In other words, his emotions can cause him to not handle things in the most optimal manner. During his epic fight with the Winter Soldier, he can't bring himself to kill Bucky, no matter how out of control he seems. He eventually tosses his shield and even stops fighting him. Although this is an extremely noble gesture, in terms of being a sound battle decision, it really isn't. Winter Soldier could have easily killed him. It was a huge gamble to take. In Avengers Endgame, this happens again. When he's fighting himself, it looks like his past self is going to win the fight. But Cap manages to defeat himself by saying Bucky is alive. This momentarily distracts his past self, giving him enough time to end the fight. What's weird in this situation is that he effectively and intelligently used his own emotional weakness against himself. So although he fell for it, he used it. It's thus an against him and for him kind of thing. As such, Captain America receives a 9 out of 10 in intelligence. Nearly 100% of the time, he's an excellent warrior and team leader. But out of all the battles he's been in, there's that rare chance where his emotions can get the better of him, causing him to lose a fight or gamble his own life. So in conclusion, what is Captain America's fighting skills rating? Out of 100 possible points, Captain America from the Marvel Cinematic Universe receives a fighting skills rating of 94. I'd like to thank each one of my Patreon members as their contribution helped in the making of this video. If you'd like to contribute and appear in the credits in the future, my Patreon page is Godzillarex and it's in the description below. What other fighters should I analyze next? Let me know in the comments below and see you next time.